It was a quiet Sunday in Marlow, a rural town nestled between the jagged blue ridges of Colorado. With a population of just under 3,000, most people knew each other by name. Children rode bikes through gravel streets, neighbors shared vegetables from their gardens, and Sunday church service was as fixed as the mountains themselves. The Hargrove family was what many called the picture of American wholesomeness. Jacob, 38, was a veteran-turned-mechanic with oil-stained fingers and a quiet strength. His wife, Denise, 35, taught music at the local elementary school and played piano during Sunday service. Their two children, Ella, age 11, and Toby, age 8, were as spirited as they were polite. The family of 4 lived in a modest white house on Sparrow Street, near the edge of town. They were loved, respected, trusted, and then on August 16, 2015, they vanished. That morning, they'd attended Marlow Community Church, just like they did every Sunday. Witnesses said Denise wore a navy floral dress. Jacob looked dapper in a pressed gray shirt, and the kids had squabbled over who got the last powdered donut during fellowship. Nothing strange, no sign of distress, just another blessed Sunday. According to Pastor Hugh, they'd said their goodbyes at around 12:20 p.m. Jacob had mentioned they were going to take a short drive to the state park for a picnic. It was a beautiful day. Golden light filtered through thin clouds, and the mountain breeze smelled like cedar and sunshine. That was the last time anyone saw the Hargrove family. They never returned home. By 7 p.m., neighbors grew concerned. Denise was known to drop off a casserole to the elderly Mrs. Keller every Sunday evening. When she didn't show, Mrs. Keller called the local sheriff. Sheriff Ron Acker, a grizzled officer in his 60s with more years on the force than some buildings in town, thought it might just be a miscommunication. But when he checked their house, the lights were off, no car in the driveway, and Denise's phone went straight to voicemail. A search was initiated the next morning. Volunteers, friends, deputies, and even a few local hunters combed through Black Creek State Park, where Jacob had said they were headed. Search dogs picked up a scent trail at a hiking trailhead but lost it about half a mile in. The family's silver SUV, a 2008 Ford Escape, was never found. News of the disappearance spread quickly. Flyers were stapled to telephone poles. Churches held vigils. The local radio station played Denise's favorite hymn every evening in remembrance. People locked their doors at night, something Marlow hadn't done in years. Parents held their kids tighter. Everyone had a theory. Some believed it was an accident. Maybe their car skidded off a back road into a ravine, hidden under thick trees. Others suspected foul play, a drifter, a hunter, a hitchhiker with dark intentions. But there was no proof, no crime scene, no broken glass, no screams. They were simply gone. Months turned into years. The seasons changed, but no answers came. The Hargrove home stood still, like a paused memory. The garden withered. Mail piled up. The swing in the backyard, once Toby's favorite, now creaked with the wind like an old whisper. Eventually, the town stopped asking when they'd be back and started wondering if they ever really left on their own. The sheriff's department followed up every tip, every possible lead, but nothing stuck. A psychic from Denver claimed the family had crossed a river and were waiting under the stars. But even that vague riddle led nowhere. It became the town's wound. Open, silent, sore. Every year, on the anniversary of their disappearance, candles were lit on the church steps. Denise's sister, Paula, would drive in from Kansas and place photos of Ella and Toby on the altar. "We're still waiting," she'd say into the silence. 10 years passed. By 2025, most people had moved on. The Hargrove case was considered one of the coldest in the state's modern history. Sheriff Acker had retired. Pastor Hugh had passed. A new generation had grown up, hearing the story as more of a local legend than a real tragedy. Then, in early October, something strange happened. Darrell Woods, 42, a mail carrier for the northern route of Marlow, was delivering parcels along Willow Creek Road, a stretch known for its sharp bends and wild brush. He usually didn't go past the Ridgeview Bend unless there was a signature delivery, but that day, a redirected Amazon box required a knock at a secluded cabin near the edge of federal land. As he climbed out of his truck, Darrell noticed something odd. A dusty silver SUV parked behind a curtain of pine trees, half covered with leaves and sap. It looked like it hadn't been moved in years. The license plate, faded but still legible, read H4GRV3. His blood ran cold. Authorities arrived within an hour. The SUV was confirmed to be the Hargroves' missing vehicle. Inside, they found rusted soda cans, old coloring books in the back seat, a woman's cardigan, and most chilling of all, a melted candle in the cup holder, long burned out. There was no blood, no signs of a struggle, but the glove compartment held a folded-up church bulletin from the day they vanished, August 16, 2015. Investigators spread out. Drone surveillance was launched over a 10-mile radius. A search team found something disturbing half a mile from the vehicle, a makeshift shelter, partially buried beneath years of forest growth. Inside were children's drawings, faded teddy bear, and a name etched in wood, Toby, 2016. It was clear someone or multiple people had lived there. For how long, no one knew. DNA samples were taken. The state crime lab confirmed it. The hair strands found matched both Ella and Denise, but it raised more questions than answers. How had they survived in the woods for any time at all? Who helped them? Why didn't they come back? And most importantly, where were they now? Just when the media frenzy hit its peak, a call came into the Marlow Sheriff's Office. A man named Walter Briggs, 76, claimed to have information about the Hargrove family. The deputy on duty almost dismissed it as another attention-seeking hoax, until Briggs mentioned something only the family or investigators could have known. I was the one who gave them shelter that first night. Walter lived in a weather-beaten cabin deep in the Red Ridge Mountains, near the state border, about 8 miles from where the SUV was discovered. Retired Army, off-grid for over 20 years. He agreed to speak on record. His statement stunned everyone. That Sunday night in 2015, a storm was brewing, and Walter had been chopping wood when he heard knocking on his cabin door. Outside stood a frantic woman, holding her daughter and shielding her son behind her. Her face was bruised. Her husband was bleeding from a wound above his brow. I remember her exact words, Walter told detectives. She said, "Please, my husband. Someone's chasing us." Walter took them in, gave them food, blankets, and first aid. But what unfolded next was something that shook even his hardened soul. According to Denise, that morning, after church, her husband Jason had confessed to something horrible. He'd been involved in a secret, illegal operation involving some prominent members of the community. Men with money, land, and long shadows. Jason had wanted out. He told Denise he feared for their lives. Hours later, a black truck had followed them from town. Jason made a sharp turn down the forest route, hoping to lose their tail. That's when the SUV was hidden and they started traveling by foot. They reached Walter's cabin just before midnight. "I let them stay," Walter said, voice trembling. "But I told them, if what you're saying is true, you can't stay long. This place ain't safe either." 2 days later, the family was gone. A note left behind read, "Thank you. We'll find a way." For the kids. No one heard from them again. Walter didn't go to the authorities. He didn't trust them. In these parts, you never know who's bought and who's buried. His confession reopened the investigation entirely. Detectives cross-referenced Walter's testimony with old leads Jason had mentioned to Denise, specifically 3 names from his workplace at Marlowe Forestry and Development. One of them, a now-deceased executive named Bryce Gentry, had been investigated years earlier for alleged land seizure fraud, but the case mysteriously disappeared. Now, with fresh attention, a pattern emerged. Gentry and his associates had allegedly used shell companies to grab federal land under falsified environmental reports, then resell them through government contracts. Jason Hargrove, a surveyor and low-level analyst, had stumbled on the real maps and financial data, and he was going to blow the whistle. But before he could, the Hargroves were gone. Forensic anthropologists unearthed something chilling 2 miles deeper into the woods. A treehouse-like structure, almost invisible from the air. Inside were 2 small mattresses, tins of old canned food, and crude drawings on birch bark, all signed Toby or Ella. One read, "Mom says stay quiet. Dad will come back soon." Another, "Don't look at the men in the hats." The press dubbed it the Children's Treehouse. It was clear. The family had been surviving, hiding, until something forced them to move or something found them. But what? June 2025. The town of Marlowe had mostly forgotten. Life moved on, except for one man. Clyde Bennett, a mailman in his early 50s, had delivered mail for 27 years. He knew every crack in every sidewalk, every barking dog, every old lady who left out cookies on Fridays. He also knew the Hargrove family's old mailbox. Still standing, rusted, no flag, but never removed. Clyde had once known Jason. They'd played high school baseball together. After the family vanished, he always kept an eye on that box, like a personal promise. And one Thursday morning, it happened. As Clyde pulled into an overgrown cul-de-sac to deliver a package to a new family nearby, he noticed something strange in the empty lot adjacent to the Hargroves' old home. A tarp, faded blue, flapping in the wind, half caught on a thorn bush. Then he saw it, the edge of a buried box beneath. Curious, Clyde pulled over and started clearing away leaves and bramble. Underneath was a weatherproof metal container, the kind hikers used to store emergency gear. It wasn't locked. Inside it were 2 things: a USB drive wrapped in plastic, a journal with the words "Read Me" scrawled in childlike handwriting. Clyde sat in his truck for a long time before deciding to drive straight to the sheriff's office. The journal, verified by forensic experts, was Ella Hargrove's. She had been only 10 when the family vanished. Her words painted a haunting, innocent but harrowing story. "We walked a lot. Dad said not to talk loud. Mom cried when Toby got sick. We hid near rivers, slept in trees, sometimes in shacks. One night we were almost caught. Men with lights. They called Dad's name. Then Mom and Dad told us to run. Follow the red ribbons." Mom said. Don't stop until you find the stars. I didn't look back. I found an old woman in a cabin. She gave me soup. She let me write. I waited and waited, but they didn't come. So I buried this in case someone cared. She included drawings, a starry sky, her father's bloodied shirt, her mother's smile, and a map pointing toward an old ranger outpost in Pine Vale Ridge. The journal ended abruptly, pages torn. It was even more shocking. Jason Hargrove had apparently compiled digital evidence. Scanned documents, emails, GPS coordinates, and a video confession recorded on a trail camera. In the footage, a younger Jason sat on a stump, whispering into the lens. If you're seeing this, I'm likely dead. Or worse, they were stealing land, falsifying maps, using government payouts to flip it. I tried to stop it. I went to the authorities 2 times. Both times I was warned. Then they came after my family. I had to choose between dying loud or living silent. The video cut out. No timestamp, no conclusion, but it was real. Investigators reopened sealed case files from the early 2000s. With the evidence on the USB drive, they finally linked Gentry and 2 remaining co-conspirators to a federal land fraud scheme worth over $38 million. Indictments followed. One arrest led to a full confession, confirming that Jason and Denise had been marked for removal, but the killers never found the kids. The journal mentioned them being separated. Search parties combed the forest ridge around the coordinates Ella left. 1 week later, they found a tiny, overgrown grave beneath a broken pine cross. Inside was a child's skeleton, clutching a worn Batman toy. DNA confirmed it, Toby Hargrove. Cause of death: pneumonia. No foul play, just exposure, untreated sickness, and time. Ella had buried her brother and moved on alone. The story made national headlines. The girl who ran from shadows. 10-year-old survivor of a conspiracy. A public search began for Ella, and incredibly, they found her. In a small community in Oregon, a young woman had been living under the name Hope Marlin. She'd arrived in 2018, homeless, quiet, a hard worker. She volunteered at a shelter, tutored kids, and avoided cameras. Someone from the shelter saw the sketch from Ella's journal on the news. They called it in. When agents approached her, she didn't run. She just whispered, "Is Toby okay?" A DNA test confirmed the match. Ella had survived in the shadows for nearly a decade. She'd changed her name, lived simply, always watching her back. But she never stopped mourning. When she saw Clyde Bennett on the news, the man who found the box, she asked to meet him. The 2 hugged silently. She whispered, "Thank you for not forgetting." Ella Hargrove now speaks at schools and abuse shelters under her real name. She's written a memoir titled, "Where the Stars Told Me to Run." All proceeds go to helping kids escape dangerous homes and systemic failures. Jason and Denise's bodies were never found, but a plaque stands in their honor at the Pine Vale Ranger Station. It reads, "They chose truth, and truth at last chose them." Clyde Bennett retired the following year. On his last day, he delivered one final letter to himself. Promise kept. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. If the story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Silent Stories. Comment below with where you're watching from, and tell us, would you have believed a child if they came to you with a cry for help? Hit the bell icon so you never miss the next tale that demands to be told. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and never stop listening to the unheard.